Oh my gosh, you're
That's
crying
what I love.
too. Yeah. You have no soul. Oh my gosh. She has a black little heart. And like, wow.
How did this turn?
I don't know. Hey, welcome to the Wally Show. And in my opinion, the best songs from bands come from their personal experiences. And that is the case with the new song from the band Cain. It's called Windows Down.
When I go driving with the windows down.
What I really love about this is it's not necessarily about Logan from the band, but it's more about his wife, Emily, and her story. And we have both of them here with us, which is great. We're going to get into it. We're going to dive in.
Love it.
It's going to be an expose. There's maybe some tears that are going to be shed.
I feel like that's likely, yeah.
Yeah. You're
First of
used
all,
to this, though.
Thank you. Well, yeah, but it's funny. It's been, sometimes you get like a real practical sense of somebody's growth. You can tell when the Spirit of God is taking over somebody's life because he takes over every facet. And Emily used to be crippled with anxiety about telling her story or public speaking of any kind. And I've seen the light come on in her eyes. And so I'm just thankful. Thank you guys for letting us tell this story. And we get to do this live with audiences. And I think it is the most meaningful thing that we get to do.
Well, that's cool, because it's definitely a different muscle to flex, I guess, for you. Normally we're talking to the band and what did you do? And so this is about your story, and it's got to be a little bit different. Now, Logan, you can only color on this one, okay? Because we want to hear Emily and talking about Windows Down. And now Logan grew up with a pastor father and in church. You did not grow up that way, correct?
No, I did not grow up in church. I mean, a little bit like when we would go to Grandma's house, I was always hiding my church clothes so I didn't have to go.
Oh, really?
Thinking that was going to get me out. But yeah, no, not really.
Well, walk me through the timeline, though, because you released this song, and I said that I saw that it was released on the anniversary of 5 years of sobriety for you. And then you also said you've been married for 4 years, and so I'm like doing math in my head, like people do, and it's like, okay, so how long were you and Logan together then before you guys got married, and were you a believer at this point in your life and in your journey?
No, so when we met, I was not a believer. I know I'm trying to think of the very first time we met. We met through cheerleading.
2017.
Yeah.
Cheerleading.
Yes.
Were you,
Yeah.
Wait, Logan, you were a cheerleader?
I was, yeah.
What?
Depending on the day, I still am.
No way.
Yeah,
Is
so
there any way?
Oh, no. Oh, that's a bad idea. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
A nice thigh stand?
Oh, no. Oh,
Okay, that's enough of that.
I enjoyed that.
Wow.
wow. Okay, he's a lot stronger than you. That's for sure. Wow.
That's impressive.
Well, so we talked a little bit off camera about school, and athletics sort of washed out for me like it does for a lot of people. And when I got to college, I wanted to play football. I went to school to play football, but I was going to be a walk-on, and things just didn't fall into place. And so I was just going to go to school, and a friend of mine, I'm so thankful, was like, hey, they're having an open gym for cheerleading, and it was a little kind of like, I'll go if you go. And so we walk into this thing, and it's really funny. It was very movie-esque. We slammed the wrong door open, and they're all like in a huddle talking, and it was like quietly walk across the gym floor, everybody staring at us like, who are these guys? And that was 2011. And when I moved to town, for those of you at home, if you don't know, anybody that claims to do music for a living does something else for a living until they can do. So rather than being a waiter or server or this or that and the other, I coached cheerleading for 5 years while I lived here in town.
Yeah, so that's how we were
met.
training. He wanted to do Team USA. I had done it for a few years, and he needed a tryout partner.
Oh, wow.
So he hit me up online. So that's how we met. He had come to Kentucky. I was still living in Lexington. He was in Nashville at the time. And, yeah, I think we met at it was like a cheerleading gathering. And I was wild. I'm gonna just tell y'all, I was a wild girl. And I remember the first thing I said to him, I was like, he didn't have a drink in his hand. I was like, you're not drinking, you're not smoking. What do you do? I'm like, what's your deal? Like, really? And he's like, no, I just really don't. I'm like, what?
Really? Yeah,
I couldn't believe that.
He grows up with a pastor's kid, and were your parents like, okay, son, I don't know the unequally yoked thing is a problem,
buddy? I can say now with confidence, this is not who Mama had hoped I would bring home initially. Yeah. Just because my mom, and she showed it to me recently, has kept journals since we were kids, praying for our spouses to be, writing in detail about who God would have for us. And it's funny that now you fit those descriptions so well. And I feel like that's what I'm not going to feign some sort of, like I had it all together, I knew, but there was just something, there was a piece of God in my heart that this person displayed the fruit of the Spirit more than some people I know that very loudly claim to be a Christian. And this was somebody that I thought like lived the life but didn't know the language.
See, it's tough though, because like as a parent too, I understand that like for my kids, like I don't want you to be unequally yoked, and I know it leads to bigger problems down the line. But that's a situation I actually find myself in with my daughter who's 24. She's met this guy. He's great. I love this kid. And it's the one thing, kind of like you said, my wife has been praying for this for years, and we all had it pictured like it would go this way, and it's not going that way. And there was a moment where I was like, God, are we messing up here? What have we done wrong? Or how do we let this go? And I'm like, we just got to love this kid and love him into this. But then you always talk about missional dating, and that's not a good idea.
Right.
And I'm sure your parents were like, are you sure you should be doing this?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to talk too much, but I'll say at this point in the story, so we went to drive from Nashville to Orlando to go to the tryout for the Team USA. It's about an 11-hour drive. I spent about 8 hours of it just telling Emily what I had been raised, the story of the Bible, as best
me
I
the
could
gospel,
from start
yeah.
to finish.
Wow.
I was
I just,
so intrigued. I mean,
well, and my dad is such a gifted speaker and such a well-studied person, as well as what my mom was my youth pastor. So it was like I just had, almost anecdotally, I just was telling one long story as best I could of like the fall of man and why we needed Jesus, and
Usually not first date type stuff.
not usually.
It just went all in.
It's a good way to make sure if something's not for you that it will end, because that's not, do you want to listen to some music? It's like, hold on, I'm about halfway.
but it started out just like he was such a good friend. I was in such a really deep, dark place with so many things. I just got out of a really like bad abusive relationship. Really, drinking was really bad. And I just felt I was just so lost. And I felt like Logan was the first person. He just like invested in me as a person, as a friend. And, it wasn't this surface level thing. Like, he would call me every single day to just check on me and be like, how are you? Like, truly, how are you doing in here?
You were, you were in a different relationship, not the abusive relationship, but you were sort of in a dating relationship with somebody from work, and in a roundabout way that was very safe for me, because I had these feelings. It was like, man, I really love who she is, but I want to check all the boxes. I want to make everybody happy. So I tried to keep her at an arm's length kind of as much as I could, but the more that I invested in you on this side, but that was the battle. You're right. That was the balance in my mind was, my whole life, because of who we are as a family, people come into the fold as my girlfriend. Well, this is what we're going to spend the bulk of our time doing, because we're in church 5 out of 7 days a week or whatever. So it just naturally would progress where somebody's faith would become a big part of who they are, just because that's who I was surrounded by. I think it's a good message for people who want to grow in their faith. Like, just surround yourself with people who are constantly doing it, and you will inherently grow. But, and so I had sort of accidentally been missionally dating all along. Right. Never to the extent of like, I'm going to go find a non-believer. But growing up in the Bible Belt, growing up in the South, everybody claims to be a Christian, but their life might say something else. And then when you start coming to family functions with me and church, and so then when we break up, it would be this thing where I was like, oh, people would come to me and say, so-and-so was only like that because they're with you. It was like, oh, cool. Okay, that stinks. And I didn't want that for her. And so I guess to kind of solve that timeline, we had that experience. And I'd never been around somebody who was an alcoholic. And we had a experience on that trip, actually, that Orlando trip, where Emily drank and blacked out. And we had a big argument. And the next day I was like, hey, do you want to like talk? Like, I need, I didn't sleep all night. I want to reconcile.
And I was like, talk about what?
Talk about what? and I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I'm blacked out. I'm like, you were looking at me in the face. Like, what do you mean? I'd never seen that happen before. And so I said, Emily, when you drink, you say stuff you don't remember that I'll never be able to forget. And it was like, that was the like fissure. That was like, okay, listen, I want you to care about this and love this for yourself, but if you can't, I don't know if we can get past this. And that was like an 8-month process that led to that trip. We've been dating for like 8 months.
Right.
End of 2017 until about the middle of that summer.
I mean, seeds were definitely planted. Like, I'd started going to church with him and the girls, and as cheesy as it sounds, it was like him and the girls, they just made loving Jesus, like, look so cool.
Right,
like, and
right.
just, very inviting. And I mean, like, I truly, it changed me. And yeah, it's just sweet how God, I mean, it's a miracle that we even ended up back together, because I never thought, it wasn't tied to him at all that day that I got saved. He wasn't the first person that I called. It's actually crazy. So
I know.
great.
We'll try to tell this part quickly. So we split up after that 8 months, where it's like, this is the impasse. This is like, I want this for you, but you have to want this for you, or we can go no further.
Right.
We're not going to be unequally yoked and be married. And
at that time, I'd tried to stop drinking and change things around, but I just couldn't.
I get it.
couldn't
Everybody
do it.
comes to that place differently and at their own time.
And I had really accepted, like, this is just who I am, and this is what my life is, and you have to take me or leave me. And he left me. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. But yeah, so
Make
3
that
days
the
after
thumbnail.
that, I mean, I had moved to Rhode Island. I'd pursued travel nursing, moved to Rhode Island, all in an effort. Eventually, I think I'm going to end up in Nashville and end up with Logan and happily ever after. Not so. A few weeks into that, we break up. And I was frail. I mean, it was just like, I've given up everything. Like, I have nothing left. Like, what do? I was working. I was at work, and I'd worked like 3 shifts in a row, not slept, not ate. And towards the end of the shift, I just started having this voice that just kept saying, like, what if there was a bigger reason for this? What if the God that he's been telling you about is actually for you too? Mm-hmm. Maybe this isn't just like for a romantic relationship, but something bigger. And I'm like, you've gone nuts. You're talking about God now. I'm just like, you have absolutely gone crazy. You're just sleep deprived, whatever. But the thoughts just wouldn't stop. And so I'm driving down the road, and the thoughts just keep coming. And I finally was just like, okay, you know what, God, if you're real, then I'll do it. I'll follow you. But I said, I need you to show me.
Right.
I need you to show me. And in an instant, the presence of God filled my car. And I heard him say, now you see, nothing else can fulfill you but me. Not the drinking, not the alcohol, not the men. And that was such a huge part of it, too, is like you said, like, God didn't want my relationship with him to be tied to any man, because that's something that I'd used as a crutch.
Right.
And so, yeah, I gave my life to Jesus that day, right there in the car. I was actually getting pulled over.
Oh, God. You weren't drinking, were you?
Wasn't it? I was like, wasn't this time. And I mean, just the look on my face, he like immediately like let me go. I'm like, something just happened to me. And so he let me off, and I called up a friend from high school that I knew was a Christian and told her what had happened
That's
to
crazy.
me. And she was like, yeah, this is real. And she was like, but you need to write everything down. And then she was like, go to sleep and wake up and just see how you feel. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I need to sleep and figure this out. And I slept, and best sleep I've ever had in my life, and woke up, and the peace was still there, and his presence was still there. And it finally was just like, no matter what happens to me, like, I'm going to be okay. You know, I'd never had that, never felt that. And I re-downloaded the Bible app that he had downloaded on my phone forever ago, that I was like, I ain't never opening this. And started going to church, and I continued to pursue travel nursing. Like, I moved around every few months and would just dive in, found a new church. I mean, I was absorbing so much, and then we saw each other a few months later.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. I'll tell this part fast. But so we split up. It's July. All this happens to her. And then in October, I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, because I'm working a cheer camp, like a clinic. I'm teaching. And I just have this feeling that she's in town. And I haven't seen her or heard from her since July. And in Kentucky, they have a thing called Big Blue Madness, which is like the first time the Kentucky basketball team scrimmages publicly. It's like and they sell out the arena. There's 25,000 people in there. and I'm sitting in there, and I don't remember what section I was, but I remember on my ticket I was seat 25. And when you know it, she walks in and she's ticketed seat 24.
Oh,
she's
wow.
sitting next to me, 25,000 people.
Wow, and you were one better
And
than
I
her
hadn't
'cause
seen.
you were 25.
Yes, of course. Which, listen,
That's where it all started.
you heard what you heard. And she taps me on the shoulder and she says, "We need to talk." And I said, "No, we do not,
Tried to
because
run away.
whatever." Yeah, because whatever you have to say, you are right. I was not proud of
Yeah.
leaving you there in that place and feeling like. Meanwhile, God was doing all this work in me and in my heart, and so she proceeds to tell me this story about how God came and found her, and it's like all I'd ever wanted for her.
For her, yeah.
And so that was where. Now we're back in each other's lives, but it was same thing, and it's to anybody that's like, you're worried about missional dating or whatever. It's like the old sides of a triangle diagram or whatever.
Right.
As you pursue the Lord, He brings you together, but there's no reason for you to cut across and walk down the same path together.
Right.
And so it just felt like in that moment, there was something in my spirit that felt like this isn't fanfare and this isn't fanatical. This is a change that happened to her that would have happened and will stay regardless of my presence. And in that moment, I don't know, I just felt like, okay. And so that was, it wasn't like, oh, great, well then, thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome back to be my girlfriend. It just started
there
this
was
process
definitely
of
still,
walking through that, and that was the beginning of where we are now.
So how long from that time did it take to where you guys ended up getting engaged?
It was that was October, and
Next day.
It was the next,
August.
the next practice for Kentucky. It was August, so the following year.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
a little bit of time then.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to. I mean, I felt like I said, I wanted to walk through and make sure it wasn't just like the end of this movie we think is happening, where it's just
Right.
like, hooray, perfect, let's go get hitched right now, and
Right.
we walked it out, and I saw things about her that my mom had been praying about.
That's
and it was
awesome.
you know what I mean? It's the type of person that would sharpen me.
And two, you were saying, when you tried to quit drinking by yourself, you couldn't. You said, I can't do this. But did you still find it hard to, did you still feel that need to want to drink even after you accepted Christ?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that was July 16th that I got saved. I didn't get sober until October 7th. Things absolutely got better. Like God was doing things in my heart. But at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the party girl anymore. But I still want to have like a casual drink,
Sure.
even though I had never been able to do that. But I was
Totally
like,
get that. Like,
now
what's the point otherwise? You know.
I'm like, if God thinks this is bad enough, surely He'll stop me.
Sure.
I don't know what I'm doing. And so yeah, that went on for a few months. And then this was probably the scariest point in my drinking, because I'm thinking, I'm really trying to do right and do good. How can I go out to have like a drink and I'm doing the same thing? I'm ending up blacked out. It was
Right.
like unbelievable. It was such a physical, something that I just truly know, like self-control, none of that. And so anyway, I was like, okay, really like full abstinence this time. I mean it. And 2 weeks later, I ended up in the hospital.
I'm telling you, man, it's a difficult road to walk, and people that haven't walked it don't fully understand it, because you have the best intentions, and you're like, this is the day, I got this, and then you undo yourself, and then you're like, well, I blew everything, and then the guilt comes in too.
Yeah, and then you're just like, well,
What do I do now?
but that scared me enough. And that day, I realized, they told me, they were like, they found, I had like bruises from them sternal rubbing me. I was so unconscious, and they were like, I knew like this is going to kill me if I don't do something about it. And so I found a recovery program. And
See, that's good. It starts with the fact that you go, okay, I realize I got a problem, but also I realize I need God. And the thing I like about this is because most things are the white light conversion, and then the drinking went away the next day. But
Right.
that's not the reality for 99% of the people.
Yep.
It's like it's a process, and you have to fight through it, and you have to be involved in your own recovery. And
Yes.
so I love that that's the honest story here, and not just the immaculate white light
For sure.
conversion.
yeah, I love that we're we're talking about it, because absolutely, like, I have such a great support system, like going to church, all those things are great, but I also need my recovery family and that fellowship and those people that have been through what I've been through and speak that
Absolutely.
language.
Common
So-
peril, yeah.
So let me ask you this. So the song "Windows Down" is about that moment, that meeting of God with you, and turning your back on the things, the choices you had made, and walking into this new life. Did you like the song when they first did it, or were you like, I got some notes?
Oh my gosh. No way. And
It's
it's
like,
so,
great story, but
Yeah.
the melody's a little weak. And
it's so funny. He like very casually just like brought it up, like, oh, we wrote a song about your story, and like sent me the rough mix, and I was sitting in my car driving down the road when I heard it.
Oh,
for the
no way.
first
That's
time.
poignant.
And it brought me right back there. I mean, they
a
nailed
good
it.
way?
And how like it was like originally the girl's idea to like come up with a song like this, and then it kind of like converged into
yeah,
to
as
my
we started
story,
writing the
but
song, it was like I just kept sitting there thinking, like, well, that's okay, and then that's right on the nose, and then I was like,
It's so funny
would y'all
how God
mind if we just
orchestrated
like
it.
made
Yeah.
this her story? Because I
Right.
think there's something, and you get this as well as anybody, that's like, as many people as can feel like they can touch a song, the better. You know, the you sort of make the world, and then you let people put their stories in it.
Right.
But with this particular song, it was like, okay, like let's just do this and we'll celebrate Emily. And I said at the beginning, what I found, we started playing it out live. Like, we wrote it about a year ago. And at first I really was just doing it to celebrate Emily and what God had done in her life. And I wanted everybody to cheer for her. And more than anything we've ever been connected to, this is the thing that triggers the response where people say, that's me. That's my wife, son, daughter, someone I love. And it's like, so now I tell this story, and it's like a seed in the ground. We sing this song, and then we sing about the blood of Jesus that really made the difference. And what I'm finding is that two things are true. You either are somebody or you love somebody that's sitting in the driver's seat of their own life that needs God to come and take that position.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like this feeling of like, okay, whether you've been a believer raised by pastors your whole life or you've been out here on your own looking for it, at some point everybody has to kneel and say, Jesus is Lord. And so it's just become a space for us, as fun as we try to be and colorful as I'm not today, but we want to have a really great time, but it's opened such a door for us to really say, if we're not here declaring that Jesus is Lord, then let's go home.
Part of what you sign up for as an artist is you crack open your own chest and you share your life, not what you signed up for. And
Yeah,
so,
true.
like all of a sudden here's your life and your story in this song. What do you hope comes from this for people?
I had so many, just for anybody that didn't grow up in the church, anybody that has any like prerequisites that they think they have in order to have a relationship with Jesus, it's just not true. He loves you. He wants you. Like, I want people to know. You don't have to know. I thought I had to have read the whole Bible and, like all these things that just didn't matter. And so, yeah, just anybody, if you feel like, I grew up one way, this just isn't for me, like Jesus is for you. He is, no matter
You don't have
where
to
you
have
came
it
from.
all together. You don't have to be perfect.
Yes.
You can come as you are.
Yes.
And I love that he pursues us and he meets us where we're at. Sometimes it's a car, sometimes it's, a broken night somewhere, It just depends on, your individual story. But it's the concept is still that he is always pursuing us, which I
Yeah.
love. Every other
Yeah.
world religion is like, what do I got to do to get to Jesus or to get to salvation?
Yeah,
or
climb
God
the
or
ladder,
whatever it is.
right.
Right. But Jesus, it's the story of him meeting you in a car one night right where you were, and that takes you to where you are now. So that's beautiful. That's a great story. I absolutely love that. And I didn't know any of that. So that's why we do these things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank y'all, and seriously, I'm just so thankful and proud. You're right. We signed up for this. I stand out on a stage and I say, "Here's my life laid bare," but you didn't sign up for this, and I just am thankful for this opportunity to publicly thank my wife and thank people for loving this song well and taking care of her. And what's funny too is we talk about this a lot now. Since the song has come out, people have sort of resurfaced, and then was like, I forgot when I was 10 years old, this person picked me up when I got left at practice and let me sleep over, or this person paid for my school books and I didn't. And it's like God has shown himself all the way, because it's one thing to feel like you have a windows down moment, but like you said, he's been after you your whole life. He's been after us our whole lives. And it's just that when we turn that our affection, that one moment where you say, God, I really need you, and he's like, perfect, I'm right here. Good. That's where I wanted you. So anyway, thank you guys.
Well, for me personally, just walking through this, I see and hear in you that joy that Jesus makes in somebody's life. And the people that understand it the most are the ones that have made the biggest mistakes, typically. And I fully know that, you know. But to see you guys and your story and see where you're at now as a dad who is concerned for his daughter and where her life is going and her choices, this gives me hope today, so thank you. Oh, why did you do this? Cry. What is wrong with you guys?
Praise
Yes.
God,
Oh,
man.
no, this has been something really heavy on my heart, on my wife's heart, for us personally with our daughter and her boyfriend. And so to see this and see you, it gives me so much hope. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, and I think that's just the beginning. Like, that's what I love the most is like seeing God take something so negative and turn it into something positive.
Oh my gosh, you're
That's what
crying
I love.
too.
Yeah.
You have no soul. Oh my gosh. She has a black little heart. And like, wow.
How did this turn?
I don't know. Oh, well, that was not you.
That was beautiful, guys.
Thank
This
you,
isn't how it
guys.
usually works with you and me.
I love it. Yes, look at you guys wipe each other's eyes. Y'all are so sweet. Gosh, I love this.
This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.